Hi, Facundo here today to do your 2 readings that you just requested. Thank you again for coming back to me for some more readings, and I hope I can help you out with your questions today. So the first reading, we're doing 2 Celtic Crosses today, and the first one is in regards to your developing career situation, which I'm happy to hear is doing better, and that you've decided to kind of take my advice from your previous reading and stick with what you know and stick with what you've already worked so hard on. And I'm glad to hear that that's going better for you. And then the second reading we're going to do today is more about your romantic situation. So I've already pulled out your significator. I'm going to use the same one I used as last time, the Knight of Discs. And let's go ahead and shuffle them up and see what we get. Okay, so I just finished shuffling and cutting. And again, this first reading is going to be more specifically about your career situation. So covering you is the Knight of Swords. Crossing is the Two of Wands. Crowning is the Nine of Discs. And grounding you is the Three of Cups. Oh, this is all very good so far. Past is the Eight of Swords. And the future is the Prince of Swords. Okay, interesting. Let's try to move this over a little bit here. Here we go. And let's see. Perspective is the Five of Cups. Environment is, or external factors, is death. Hopes and fears, the Three of Discs. And the overall outcome is the Magus. Okay. And then on the bottom of the deck is the Ten of Wands. Okay. So I think the overall idea that I'm getting right off the bat is that you are definitely feeling much more empowered lately than you were before when you weren't really sure what it was you needed to do. I think you feel like you have more clarity about what you need, what direction you need to go in. I think in the past you suffered from having too many different goals and too many different agendas and were going in too many different directions at once. And that is starting to fade away. I see you as focusing a lot more on a specific path, as you told me in your email, with the Knight of Swords, providing you sort of direction and momentum and really focus. That's really what I associate the Knight of Swords with, is tremendous amounts of focus on one particular thing and sort of diverting all of one's focus and energy into that direction. And the Two of Wands with that really tells me that you really are doing a good job of that, and that it's giving you a feeling of empowerment, and it feels like this is something that you've definitely finally chosen, and that you feel better for having made this choice. And, you just in general, the funny thing is that you, on one hand, feel, with the Five of Cups as your perspective, that something didn't quite work out the way that you had hoped. And so, on one hand, you are sort of feeling a little depressed about something that you have had to let go of. But at the same time, I think you are still finding a lot of happiness with the new choice that you've made. There's definitely this idea in your reading today of loss and letting go of something, and I believe death was in your previous reading as well. I can't remember now, and I just looked at it too. It's going to drive me crazy, but you have death in your external factors and disappointment in your perspective. So that's a lot of Scorpio in terms of how you are relating to that which is going on around you, and there's just this sense of loss about that. So, but at the same time, I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think you have to try to remain positive about this and realize that your talents are being put to better use in this way than they would have been if you had continued pursuing the other things that you had been interested in pursuing. I think that letting go of those things is healthy for you, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. So don't let yourself get too clouded by whatever disappointment you may be experiencing from that. I think you need to try to look more on the bright side and not let that disrupt the very positive flow that you are experiencing now. It says that what you should be focusing on really is just reaping the benefits of the work that you're currently doing. You know, part of your hopes and fears are represented by the three of discs. So either, you know, part of you may or may not be concerned with finding work in this field still, but I think for the most part you feel more like you have more capability to actually find work. And so I think that for the most part, I think you're pretty optimistic about it. I'm not exactly sure why it's saying that you're kind of down in the dumps about this letting go aspect here. You know, you've got quite a bit of Mars in your reading, actually. Really, all four of these cards are connected for me with really the Two of Wands, particularly the minors here, the Two of Wands, Three of Discs, and the Five of Cups. And all three of those, it's kind of interesting. On one hand, I think that you are hoping that this is going to be a new opportunity for you to do good stuff, good work. But on the other hand, there's something about it that you're not entirely crazy about. But, you know, again, I think it's important for you to remain focused and not let yourself get too distracted by things, because I do see you as possibly going back down that road a little bit in your immediate future, because you do have the Prince of Swords in your immediate outcome, your immediate future. And that was the card that represented you in the previous reading that I find kind of interesting. It could represent someone who also may be coming into the situation to give you further ideas. You know, if this is an actual person, they are someone with a lot of big ideas. They would have possibly a lot of options to throw at you, but none of them are necessarily real or valid. So the Prince of Swords, you know, whether they represent another person or you, you know, I think that you're the type of person that likes to have a lot of ideas, and I may have said this in the previous reading. You know, you're an intellectual guy, and you like to brainstorm, and you like to think about the different consequences of choices. But I think that gets you into trouble sometimes when you overthink them, and I think you need to trust in the more natural flow of things instead of trying to think your way through everything. You know, it's okay to take a step back and let things kind of happen for themselves, really. You do have kind of a lack of fire, which is a little problematic. Perhaps part of what is making you feel depressed is that you feel, to some extent, that well, I almost feel like you feel that because you've had to let go of some of your other ideas, that you feel more restricted now and more committed to a single path, and that doesn't necessarily thrill you. But at the same time, it is more lucrative for you, and it is an opportunity for you to be very successful financially with this. And so again, I don't know that the Ten of Wands on the bottom of your deck for oppression is really a bad kind of oppression. Well, you do have the Hanged Man below that, and the Seven of Wands under that. So so the thing is, you do want something new still. You know, I think that you can find something new, though, for yourself without necessarily radically changing your career. And I think this is largely what I was trying to get at in your previous reading is that there may be, other ways for you to branch out in the career that you already have, or to just branch out in other areas of life, to become a little more adventurous with other things, so that you don't necessarily feel quite so claustrophobic in your career situation. Because I'm getting the sense that that's how this all kind of fits in, these feelings of disappointment and letting go, with feelings of feelings of happiness and feelings of fitting in also, getting along possibly with coworkers and making good connections with people that are opening doors for you. The Three of Cups here in this reading, I think, is not necessarily related to society and partying and that sort of thing. I think it's more that you're just making the right connections and you're meeting people, and these people are appreciating you for your talent, which is going to be the overall outcome in your situation again. Not again, rather, I should say, because the previous reading I did for you, Facundo, the overall outcome was the Ace of Swords, representing clarity and focus. And the interesting thing is the Knight of Swords sort of embodies that for your overall outcome. For your overall situation. And the Magus is also kind of similar to that energy. I think both of these readings stress the idea that you are an intelligent person and that you are a talented person and that you know what you're doing in the fields that you're already in, and that this is going to be something that will in fact carry you through this particular issue. The card is Mercury, and Mercury is echoed rather in the Three of Cups, which I find kind of interesting here. And so the people that you are really connecting with, or the sense of happiness that you are deriving from the focus that you have found, I think that in turn is connected to the fact that this is that your ability in this field really comes naturally to you, and that's very important. I think that whenever we have talent or ability that comes naturally to us, it's just that clearly has something to do with our calling, and we have to try to cultivate that as much as possible and share that with other people as much as possible, and I think you're on the track to doing that. Now, again, to sort of alleviate some of the tension that you may be feeling, because I definitely feel that there is brooding tension here in this reading, I think just try to open up and go with the flow a little bit more. Just allow yourself to try new things in general, and it does, like I said before, it really does not have to necessarily do with work or your career. You might even just pick up a fun new hobby that you may have always wanted to try, or a new, physical activity or something. I think that could make you feel a little less confined. Because mentally, you don't like to feel confined. You like to be able to think for yourself and think independently and come up with your own ideas. And, that's definitely the track that you're going to go back into with the immediate future here, being the Prince of Swords. I don't think the Prince of Swords represents another person, honestly. I think it does represent an aspect of you, as it has in the past, and as a sort of trope of the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords here is kind of transforming over time into the Prince of Swords, and that means we go from currently a state of real drive and focus into a state of more gooey, more intangible ideas, things that are less realistic for you to actually put into practice. And I think, that's also a concern of yours in a sense, too, with the Three of Discs being your hopes and fears. It's always best to try to read that card as a double-edged sword in that position. And so on one hand, you are hoping to, you feel perhaps optimistic about your ability to find more work in this field, but on the other hand, you are also wary of making choices that destabilize that potential. So you got to be careful here and go with the choices that are more realistic. I think don't let yourself get too lost in your thoughts, lost in your daydreams, lost in your big ideals here. I think this really is really more of an opportunity for you to stay grounded, with the Nine of Discs telling you as your overall advice, really to focus on the financial end of this, to prioritize that, to prioritize the material rewards that are available to you here, because they certainly are available to you. You know, just continue to focus and put your energy in those things. Be patient, and don't get too sidetracked. You know, sidetracking here, I think, is a little dangerous for you, actually. You know, and that's not to say that having ideals and having big ideas is a bad thing. It's just the Prince of Swords does traditionally represent a person who tends to stay in his head. You know, I, myself included, my ascendant is the Prince of Swords, and so I totally understand that type of thinking where, you know, you just end up thinking about all the different possibilities and they all seem kind of cool, and you sort of want to try out all of them, and in doing that you never actually really make anything at all. And so that's not quite right here for you. We want tangible stuff, especially since you are in this process of letting go of other things. You know, you need to sort of replace those things and let new energy come into your life. I think by letting go of some of these other things that haven't necessarily worked for you, you know, letting go of other career options, other choices, I think that you could conceivably use this up as an opportunity to recycle some of that time, some of that energy into other things that may also be productive for you. You know, you could even, you know, I don't know what type of exercise you're into or do, but you might try something new with that. You know, I think that there are other practical ways for you to express your creativity without necessarily shifting gears and lives really entirely. Okay. Don't have any number echoing. You don't have a whole lot of majors, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, I think this is saying that largely this situation is in your hands, that this is not necessarily something that you can't control. You know, I think whatever loss of, whatever job loss or whatever this death is representing, you know, that could represent something that was out of your control or is out of your control, and, you know, would represent possibly a loss of position, a loss of a particular status or job you held, and maybe that also is what is disappointing you as well on some level. You know, that just didn't work out the way you had planned. But again, there are options for you here, you know, because you are good at what you do. You know, so, you know, the alternative way of reading this is that, you know, perhaps in your previous situation that you've been letting go of, maybe that situation in and of itself was claustrophobic for you and didn't allow you to express your creative potential as a scientist or what have you. You know, and I think that you perhaps should be looking for other jobs that are a little more open to that creativity, because that is, I mean, I feel that is something that is a gift of yours that you should be sharing with the world and not necessarily shying away from. So let me see. Yeah, I think overall, next two cards for your overall outcome, just to give you some extra stuff here, Princess of Discs and the Ten of Discs. So I think that in the overall outcome, you know, you are going to have to learn how to make that creativity more practical. As I've kind of been saying, the Princess of Discs is telling me that you need to ground yourself and give yourself time and allow yourself to nurture your talent and your creativity in a way that is productive and, again, tangible. You are looking to make tangible results right now. You are not looking to, cure a world's deadly disease right now. You are looking for tangible results and for basically just securing your financial situation. I think that you'll honestly feel more comfortable when you have done that for yourself and restabilized yourself and gotten some money saved away. I think that this is going to allow you to eventually accumulate money again, feel more stable, and have some money set aside for whatever else you would like to do with it. And possibly from there, use that money to be more adventurous and try new things or something like that. And that's about it for this reading. This reading was pretty straightforward, and it was very similar to your previous reading about careers, so not a whole lot has changed here. It's positive. It definitely is positive, and it's telling you to keep going with this, but to definitely stay practical in this regard, and don't stray too far from the path of I guess the path of virtue here. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead, and because I think that's all I can get out of this today, that's about all it is saying here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do your next reading, which is more about your relationship situation. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, so I just finished shuffling and cutting for this reading as well. And this is your romantic situation reading, your love life. Okay, bottom of the deck is the Three of Discs again. And crossing you is the Ace of Wands. Crossing you is the Five of Pentacles. I mean the Five of Wands, excuse me. Crowning you is the Wheel of Fortune. Grounding you is the Devil. And in the past is the Five of Cups, and in the immediate future is the Ace of Discs. Okay. Perspective is the Nine of Pentacles, or Discs. Exterior factors, adjustment. Hopes and fears, the Six of Cups. And overall outcome is death. Okay. Alright, the first thing I get is that is a little bit that you have to sort of stay focused, and this goes along with what we've been saying in the previous two readings. I think the idea is that your work situation still has to be your priority, and I think that at the same time, it may be to some extent I don't want to say a block. I think you may perhaps see it as something that interferes with your love life, but I don't necessarily think that that's the case either. The overall idea of your reading for this is the Ace of Wands, crossed by the Five of Wands. So this almost tells me there's this idea of competition that's very inherent in this reading with the Devil as well. It's almost like there are opportunities for you to meet up with people. I kind of want to say that primarily right now you are not necessarily, I don't know that you're necessarily looking for a relationship right now. I think that you kind of sort of think you do, kind of sort of. I think you're more interested in the physical aspects of a relationship at the moment, to be perfectly honest with you. And that is just because you are also represented by the devil, and the devil is all about sex, point blank. The devil is all about physicality and physical desire. And your hopes and fears are represented by the Six of Cups, which is about the fulfillment of the sexual will. So you want a very intimate connection with someone. You want to have that sort of intercourse with someone that is very pure, in that it's very sincere and open in a way. It's not complicated. It's simple happiness, and it is mostly sexual. I think you feel that you also have a lot to offer, and I don't know if you necessarily feel you have a lot to offer in terms of just a financial type of thing, or I don't know. I think you just see yourself, with the Nine of Pentacles as having something that other people should want, and that could either be money or good looks, or whatever you think has value about yourself. I think you feel you value yourself, and in the past you haven't had good luck recently with relationships. You have perhaps had your heart broken a little bit, not severely, but you've definitely faced some disappointments in the past. And I think that this partially is what I think that you're kind of like me with relationships. When we suffer disappointment in relationships, we feel like we have to then reprove our worth to the collective body of mankind by by either courting the right person, or getting with the right person, or something, and we use relationships to validate ourselves in order to make us feel less crappy about the rejection that we may have previously faced. At least, hey, that's what I do. I will openly admit it. And I sense a little bit that you're kind of doing the same thing, that you want something new, you want something fresh in terms of your relationship situation, but I think you're doing it more because you feel like you have something to prove. You feel that it might either validate your status, or validate your success in life. Particularly your work success. And I think, this all does stem from the fact that you are an ambitious person and you are a motivated person. And I think that when motivated and ambitious people come against obstacles in their love life, yeah, I think the natural thing for us to want to do is to try to do better. What can I do to be better at this? Did I do something wrong? Is there something else that I could be doing that would make me more attractive or more desirable, or and you start thinking all these goofy things. But really, the best thing you can really do, ultimately, especially if you want a connection that's pure and clean in a way, and devoid of ulterior motives, if that's what you really want, then the best thing for you to do is just keep doing you and be yourself, and not necessarily try to improve yourself per se, because there isn't really anything that needs improvement. You can only be you. And if people don't like that, then that's their problem. In your environmental situation, you have adjustment, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if there is someone in particular that you've been kind of maybe making up your mind about. Alternatively, it could represent, the decisions that you've been having to make in regards to your work situation, and how that has sort of been predominantly on your mind. And possibly, now that you feel that you have sort of squared that away a little bit better, that that definitely puts you in a better position to resume dating and that sort of thing. You don't feel quite as vulnerable now that your job situation seems a little more collected, I guess, and a little more thought out. Um, but I think that by focusing on that end of things, something new I think is going to come your way in the immediate future. I think that you may have sort of a fling with someone. I think that you're going to find some type of sexual partner for the time being in the immediate future. I don't know whether or not it's going to last. Probably not. I see it as being kind of a superficial thing, which is not really what you're looking for. The Ace of Discs, when I get the Ace of Discs in relationship readings, it is almost always like a hookup kind of thing. It isn't really, it's more like instant gratification instead of a real deep anything. And there's a lot of earth too in your reading, and not a whole lot of water. The water that you have, which of course is the suit of love and relationships, the water that you have is very, again, intangible. It's really only present in the past in the form of disappointment and in your hopes and fears, which aren't necessarily manifest. And so I think what you could benefit from, given your crown card, your advice card in this situation, I think the Wheel of Fortune is pretty clear in telling you to just wait for the universe to dump into your lap what it's going to dump into your lap, because I think that it wants to give you someone, or bring someone into your life, rather, is a better way of putting it. Bring someone into your life that's actually going to work for you. And I think you have to trust that that will happen and come eventually, naturally. That's usually how I interpret the fortune card for things, is that the universe is always trying to give you the things that you actually need, and not necessarily the things that you necessarily want. And I think that you have to trust that a little bit more and just go with the flow. Like I was saying in your previous reading, going with the flow for you, I think, is pretty important, because I think that you also feel that you need to be very controlling of this situation, and again, do everything you can to make it work and improve yourself and be the best in this possible in the dating arena. You want to be seen as someone with a lot to offer, as someone who's attractive, as someone who is sexually competent, someone who is successful career-wise and otherwise. That is what you are going towards right now. But I think I don't think that that's necessarily what you want. Otherwise, you're only going to get people who are interested in that part of you and are not necessarily interested in you for who you actually are. And that's clearly not what we want to go for. Yeah, you don't have a lot of Venus in here either, which is not good for a love reading. And the only Venus you have, and you do have some, you have Venus in the form of adjustment and the Nine of Pentacles, your exterior and the energy that you're putting out there. Yeah, I think that you have to sort of see. I almost sense, and this is just something that I'm getting, that you're kind of conflating this idea of success in your career with success in your love life, and that if one is going well, then the other should also be going well. And I don't know that that's really the case. I think they are two very separate things, and the energy we put into one is different from the energy we need to put into the other. With career, so much of career building is about self-activation and motivation and putting one's energy into it. Whereas with relationships, a lot of it is holding back and not putting too many expectations and putting too much force in it. And I mean, again, I am culpable of this as well, and so I get it. But I think we both need to learn that forcing it at any point in looking for the right person is not going to work. You're only going to end up with something unsustainable. You know, be careful what you wish for is sort of the moral of this story in a way, because the overall outcome is death as it is right now. And so, you know, if the Ace of Discs is representing, you know, some sort of new fling coming in your life, the death card tells me that it's going to you're going to have to let go of that eventually as well, you know, and if you attach to it too quickly, you know, because you think that the person values you more than they actually do, then you're only going to get hurt again. So you want to be very careful here and wait it out and see what is going to come your way. I think it's telling you largely to just give it a break to some extent, with the Four of Swords on the bottom of the deck as well, underneath the Three of Discs. The Magus and the Two of Wands are below that. And again, I think this is emphasizing to, you know, let your career be the focus and continue to work towards situating yourself with that and not worry so much about this aspect of your life right now. Yeah, I see with this letting go that's going to happen down the road, I think you're going to want to rush into something else in order to fix it. And again, that's not great either. You know, so if you really do want, it depends on what you're looking for. You know, if what you're looking for is just a good time, you know, and fun, I mean, then go for it. I mean, that's a perfectly valid way of going about it if you're willing to accept the consequences of that. If that isn't what you're looking for, then again, I think just let things be and don't worry so much about it. You know, it will happen of its own accord, is what it's saying to me. It's going to come naturally. You just have to let fate take its course for the time being. That's really the best thing that you can do. Don't force anything. Don't try to start things that don't necessarily need to be started, that are only going to distract you and detract you from focus, which, as we talked about in your previous reading, is so important for you right now, to continue staying focused on your career. It's so important. And this, I think, has the potential to become a distraction more than a source of real happiness for you. And it is an opportunity, or rather, there's potential for causing harm here as well, that we don't want. You know, in the form of just you don't want to get yourself hurt, and that's really all I see with this. I want to say that's about it. It's funny how you get similar cards in this reading as you did with your previous reading as well, with the Prince of Swords there, and the Nine of Discs and the Three of Discs. You know, so in some ways, as I was saying before, you know, how your love life and your work life are separated. You know, on one hand they are, and on the other hand, at a deeper level, you know, all of our different life situations rather, are at a very subtle level connected, because they are all different expressions of our growing process psychologically and spiritually. And so in some ways, your love life is representative of the same issue that you're trying, and the same lesson you're trying to learn in life right now as your work situation. But the way you approach them has to be different, you know, in order to get the most out of them. And I hope that makes sense. And again, I think that means, you know, being more active in the work field and more passive in the romance field. That's how I see it. So, yeah, I think that that would be the best thing for you. And the other reason, too, for that is that Jupiter is the ruler of fortune, and Jupiter is also sort of a watery planet. I know Jupiter technically is air, but Jupiter on the Tree of Life is Chesed, and Chesed is considered a water Sephira. So the closest thing to adding to whatever watery potential is here, rests in fortune for me. Because it isn't really going to come from anywhere else. Your approach right now is too dry, it's too concentrated, it's too harsh. You need to back off and not be so aggressive. Just don't be so aggressive right now. Let it be. Let it rest. Take your time. Let whatever seeds you may have planted grow slowly, and don't feel like your success as a human being is dependent upon finding the right person right now. Okay, because it isn't. You're a great guy in and of yourself, and just keep focusing on you right now. I think that's really important. So, I definitely think that someone's going to come along for you. I do. Just give it time and let it happen naturally. All right, so I hope that both of these readings made sense. I hope they cleared some stuff up for you and gave you some food for thought. And as always, I appreciate your, a returning customer. I appreciate your business for coming back to me for some readings today. And I wish you the best of luck. So thank you very much again, and take care. Bye-bye.